Charlotte, thank you for giving birth to such a cute child. Let's be happy together. You're too emotional. A man holding a newborn with tears in his eyes and a woman watching warmly. To an outsider, they would look like a picture-perfect happy family. But the tearful man is my husband, Randy, and the woman watching is my sister, Charlotte. This is not a scene of family happiness, it's a horrible betrayal of our family. With determination, I stepped forward in front of them. Of course, Randy and Charlotte were surprised, but there was no sign of remorse. You aren't gonna have a baby anytime soon, so I did it for you. That's right. I'm divorcing you and living happily with Charlotte. If that's the case, so be it. But you will face the punishment I've prepared, and from behind me, 30 of Randy's relatives emerged. The sight of Randy and Charlotte turning pale made me smile. Congratulations. Be happy. My name is Tina, 30 years old. I don't have children, but I live a quiet life as an ordinary office worker with my husband Randy. I met Randy through a friend's introduction and got married 2 years ago, but our married life hasn't been great. As soon as we got married, Randy became colder than before. He helps with housework, but he's indifferent towards me and uncooperative about having children. Lately, we've even started sleeping in separate bedrooms, like mere roommates. Am I not attractive as a woman? Looking at myself in the mirror, I sighed. Seeing my too ordinary appearance makes me feel sick because it reminds me of unpleasant memories. Since childhood, I was harassed by my beautiful older sister, Charlotte, who is 1 year older than me. For some genetic reason, Charlotte was exceptionally good-looking even among our relatives. She was pampered and praised by adults around her since she was a child. Our parents never treated us differently based on looks, but the difference became clear when we were among our relatives. You could be a celebrity. You look like an actress, our relatives would say, boosting Charlotte's confidence. And she would look down on me, who never received such compliments. Tina, don't you feel sad about your looks? No, I'm not sad. Really? I couldn't do it. I'd be too embarrassed to live with a face like yours. Saying that, Charlotte would pull my hair and laugh at my face. I couldn't bring myself to tell my parents about the harassment from my sister when we were alone. I didn't want to make them sad, and maybe deep down, I thought they might feel the same way. My self-deprecating thoughts only encouraged Charlotte's behavior. My self-esteem, repeatedly undermined by my sister since childhood, was significantly damaged. I lived my life trying not to stand out. Still, I couldn't distance myself from my sister, Charlotte. Even when I liked someone, Charlotte would quickly take them away. In middle school, I was shocked when a man I had a crush on started dating Charlotte. Tina, I'm sorry? That guy was really persistent. Well, he wouldn't have noticed you anyway, right? I remember crying all night and my eyes turning red, but what shocked me more was how quickly Charlotte lost interest in that man. Charlotte, who had easily dumped the senior, seemed to enjoy my despair. I couldn't compete with her in looks or style, so I focused on my studies instead. We were opposites, and by the time I entered high school, our parents, who didn't seem to get along that badly, suddenly decided to get a divorce. I was shocked by the sudden divorce. I moved with my dad, and Charlotte moved with my mom. Though I was sad to be separated from my mom, the relief of being away from Charlotte was greater. I haven't seen Charlotte since. Occasionally, I'd hear through my dad that Charlotte went to college and is now working as a secretary at a local company, but I didn't pay much attention. When I got married, I informed my mom but said nothing to Charlotte. I thought I was safe, but I soon learned just how wicked Charlotte could be. One day, there was a middle school reunion. I didn't have many good memories of middle school because of Charlotte, but I was fortunate to have good classmates. At the hotel venue, I spent a nostalgic time with friends I hadn't seen in a while, and I reunited with a friend named Camila. She had been the class president back then, a responsible and caring person. As we chatted, she said something surprising. By the way, Tina, your sister had a baby. Congrats. What? A baby? I was startled by the news, and Camila looked equally surprised. "Oh, sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have told you. I just assumed you knew since she looked so pregnant." "Actually, our parents divorced when we were in high school, so we live apart now." "Charlotte had a baby?" Camila nodded apologetically. Camila, who now works as a nurse at a hospital in the city, said she saw Charlotte coming for prenatal checkups. Feeling guilty for revealing a patient's privacy, Camila looked uncomfortable. "So, your parents divorced, sorry. Please don't tell anyone I told you." "Yeah, of course." But the thought of Charlotte being pregnant. I hadn't heard any wedding news, so is she planning to be a single mom? Dad hadn't mentioned anything, but maybe Mom knew the details? When I got home, I called my mom to confirm, and she hesitantly admitted the truth. "That's right, but she won't tell us who the father is. Charlotte insists on having the baby. I've informed your dad, but we can't do anything because she's determined." "I see." Dad must have been trying hard to keep me from worrying. Mom's words also showed her concern for me. Indeed, since our parents were divorced, Charlotte's pregnancy had nothing to do with me. Feeling somewhat relieved, I offered some kind words to my mom and hung up the phone. Just then, Randy came home. Currently, my bigger worry is Randy rather than Charlotte. As usual, he wouldn't even look at me and spoke coldly. "I'm gonna have to work overtime more." "What, even more than now? Is work that tough?" "Of course. You wouldn't understand working at a small company. I'm the next CEO. It's not like you, just fooling around." I felt sad because it's not like I'm just fooling around. But when someone confronts me strongly, I become timid and can only say, "Sorry." "As long as you understand." Satisfied with my response, Randy headed straight for the bathroom. At that moment, a sweet scent wafted from him. It was a sickly sweet smell, like women's perfume, and it made me realize something. Could Randy be cheating? Is that why he's treating me so coldly? Behind his cold demeanor, I could now see the shadow of another woman. One Saturday, Randy had to stay overnight for a company training session. When I asked where it would be held and what kind of training it was, he wouldn't give me any details. Instead, he snapped, "Shut up. Why do I need to tell you that?" which made me even more suspicious. My doubts that he was meeting his lover grew stronger. In the midst of my anxiety, I got a call that made me even more uneasy. It was from Charlotte. We hadn't been in touch since our parents' divorce, so I was apprehensive about what she wanted and hesitantly pressed the call button. "Hello? Oh, Tina? Long time no see." Charlotte started the conversation with the same energy as always. Despite being 31, she still talked like a teenager, and after some casual small talk, she got to the point. "Mom told me you found out about my pregnancy." "Yeah." "Charlotte, are you really going to have the baby?" "Of course. You're gonna be an aunt, so I'll let you know when the baby is born." I didn't really care about that, but I was worried and asked, "Who is the father?" "Mom's really worried." "Don't worry. It's not like he ran away, there's just a bit of a situation." "A situation?" At that moment, I heard a man's voice faintly in the background. A low voice calling out to her. The moment I heard it, chills ran down my spine. "Hey, I'm on the phone." I could hear Charlotte hurriedly covering the microphone and talking to the person. "Sorry, did you hear that?" "What?" "Yeah, is someone there?" I asked, trying to remain calm. I immediately decided it was important not to let her know I'd figured something out. "Oh, nothing." Charlotte seemed relieved and started wrapping up the conversation, and finally, she gave a sly chuckle. "Well, talk to you later." After ending the call with her, I collapsed weakly on the spot. 3 months later, I received a carefree message from Charlotte. "The baby was born safely. It's a cute baby boy." Sure enough, the message included a picture of a cute newborn, radiating happiness. I simply replied, "Congratulations," to Charlotte, who had just gone through childbirth. Suddenly, Randy, who was sitting on the couch behind me, stood up. He paced around the living room, clutching his phone, looking uneasy. Watching him closely, I spoke up. "What's wrong, Randy? You seem unusually restless." "Oh, it's nothing." For once, Randy was evasive, not even noticing my cold stare. 5 days later, Randy said he had an urgent errand and left the house. But I knew where he was going. After he left, I hurried to make arrangements. It was the hammer of justice I had prepared for him over 3 months. After making all the calls, I got into a taxi and headed to a certain place. I arrived at a large hospital in the city. While waiting at the entrance, I saw a happy-looking couple walking from the lobby. The man, Randy, was happily holding a baby in his arms. Next to him was Charlotte, looking satisfied after her major task. "Charlotte, thank you for giving birth to such a cute child. Let's be happy together. You're too emotional." Today was the day Charlotte was being discharged from the hospital. My suspicions were confirmed, and seeing this scene made me dizzy. But I couldn't afford to lose consciousness here. Regaining my composure, I stepped in front of the two as they walked out of the hospital, oblivious. "Tina, you came?" Yes, Randy's affair was with none other than Charlotte. The voice I heard on the phone that day was Randy's. I couldn't believe it at first, but hiring a detective confirmed the affair. With my arms crossed, I looked at them with unprecedented anger and disdain in my eyes. "Of course, I came to visit Charlotte. But to think the other person was Randy. You two look very happy, but happiness built on an affair doesn't last long. What did you say? You think you're so high and mighty." Randy, unusually defiant, yelled at me, even though he was the one in the wrong. Charlotte, standing beside him, also insulted me as if I were the culprit. "You weren't having a baby, so I had one for you." "That's right. I'm divorcing you and living happily with Charlotte." Randy emphasized the word divorce. As if to shock me, but it had no effect. I had long been prepared for divorce. I came here today to make these two realize the consequences. I raised my right hand slowly. It was a signal to let them know they could come. "You two are the ones acting high and mighty. Isn't that right, everyone?" Then, behind me, 30 people lined up. They were the Hughes family, Randy's relatives. Seeing this, Randy was shocked to the core. "Dad, Mom, and even my uncles." Their eyes, like mine, were filled with anger. Among them, his parents were the angriest. Not wanting to meet their gaze, Randy glared at me and yelled, "You're such a coward! Dragging my relatives into this mess." But his father interrupted him. "The coward here is you, Randy." "Dad." When I heard about this, I called everyone. Of course, it was to discipline my foolish son. "Randy, what have you done?" Standing next to him, his mother, holding back tears, cried out. "To have an affair with Tina's sister. And even have a child. What were you thinking?" His father, the company's president, had been grooming Randy to be the next CEO, so the sense of betrayal was strong. His mother, who cared about appearances, also found Randy's infidelity hard to accept. When I went to inform them after hiring a detective and gathering evidence, they were more worried about me than Randy and immediately took my side. Randy had always been self-centered, and his parents' trust in him had been thin. Yet, he didn't seem to realize his wrongdoing. "What? I'm divorcing Tina and marrying Charlotte. I'm filing for divorce, then registering the marriage and birth. The order is proper, right? How can you say such things so shamelessly?" His father, instead of me, was furious. "It's not about the order. It's about you being wrong as a person. There are too many things you lack as a human being." Then, his father placed a hand on the shoulder of a man standing nearby. "Someone like you can't be the president. Jake will be the next CEO. You're out of the company." "Dad." Jake, Randy's brother and my brother-in-law, looked at Randy with cold eyes. "I'm really disappointed in you, brother. If you can't take care of your own family, how can you take care of the company? Jake, you. Randy glared at Jake, while Charlotte's expression changed dramatically upon hearing his father's words to leave the company. Wait, Randy! You said your family would accept us. Charlotte! This isn't the time for that. What do you mean? That's the most important thing. Randy and Charlotte started arguing loudly. Apparently, Randy had told Charlotte that their remarriage following the affair would be accepted, but it was a complete lie. Randy had been lying conveniently to both Charlotte and me. I can't believe this. You said you were Tina's husband and the next CEO, so I thought it would be fun to steal you. Charlotte! If you can't become the CEO, you're just useless. At this, I couldn't stay silent any longer. Wait a minute. I called out. I couldn't ignore her saying it'd be so fun to steal him. Charlotte, is it really that fun for you to take my husband away from me? I couldn't believe it, but Charlotte confirmed my worst fears. With no remorse, she said cheerfully. Of course. Taking something from you is the best thrill for me. When I heard your husband was the next CEO, I was thrilled. I could steal him and climb the social ladder. I even had a baby for him, but being removed as a CEO candidate is a big miscalculation. I had heard from the detective agency that Randy and Charlotte's meeting was coincidental, with Charlotte returning Randy's forgotten umbrella. But from what Charlotte just said, it was clear she had planned it, knowing he was my husband. It made me shiver to think she was more like a devil than a human, and it seemed the Randy's family felt the same, looking at me with sympathetic eyes. I felt so frustrated, tears welled up, at that moment. My parents, who had been hiding behind the Randy's family, stepped forward. I had actually called them today. Though they had been watching in shock, they couldn't stand Charlotte's attacks on me any longer, and stood before me with sorrow and anger. Enough, Charlotte! Dad! Mom too! My mom walked briskly to Charlotte and, with tears streaming down her face, slapped her hard. What are you doing? We should be the ones asking that. How could you have a child with Randy? Do you understand why we pretended to divorce? Pretended to divorce! Holding her cheek, Charlotte was stunned. My mom, crying, began to speak. Charlotte had always been harsh on me, and while I had tried to hide it, our parents had noticed. They initially thought we were just two sisters who didn't get along, but as we hit puberty, they realized our relationship was abnormal. Charlotte's obsession with me was particularly severe. Fearing that Charlotte might eventually ruin my life, my mother suggested to my father that they separate. At the time, Charlotte often insulted my appearance, hit me over trivial matters, and took away people I liked. Our parents were aware and concerned. So, they created the pretext of their own marital discord and divorce to separate us. They didn't explain the reason to avoid further harassment from Charlotte, respecting my wish to keep it hidden. They knew Charlotte wouldn't accept the reason, so they made it about their own convenience. When they revealed this during the consultation about Randy and Charlotte, I was surprised but also deeply moved by their long-standing love and concern. Charlotte, who knew nothing about it, was completely shocked. Why would you pretend to divorce? Because of your abnormal aggression towards Tina. But I never imagined it was this bad. We should have separated you too much sooner and further apart. Absolutely. To think you'd use a child as a pawn even as an adult. Pathetic. My parents stood by my side, shielding me while blaming Charlotte. It gave me strength. I won't be swayed by my toxic sister anymore. Smiling, I addressed the two betrayers. I'm done. I'm cutting ties with you. Congratulations, and I hope you find happiness. These were my heartfelt words of blessing. After delivering judgment to Randy and Charlotte in front of the hospital, Randy's relatives said their strong goodbyes, promising to support me if anything else happened. It seemed that Camila, the nurse, had also witnessed the commotion and later asked me what happened. It was awkward to explain, but since she had informed me about Charlotte, I told her the situation. Surprised, she nonetheless took my side. "I'll chase Charlotte away if I see her next time," she declared angrily, whether seriously or not, making me laugh. After that, my divorce from Randy proceeded smoothly. With the support of my in-laws, I received a substantial amount of alimony from Randy. However, the wounds from their betrayal didn't heal easily, it was too painful. But what helped me endure were the support and consideration from my in-laws, Camila's encouragement, and most of all, my parents' devoted care. Despite their difficult position, they watched over me and sided with me. I am deeply grateful. They regretted not acting sooner, but they had never imagined Charlotte's obsession with me was so extreme. Even I hadn't imagined Charlotte would go this far. So, I didn't blame my parents. On the other hand, Randy and Charlotte apparently felt they couldn't back out and officially got married. Though they became a couple, Charlotte complained that her life was not what she had expected. "I was supposed to be a CEO's wife, but now we're living in poverty." Randy, expelled from the company, had little wealth. As declared that day, his brother Jake was chosen as the next CEO, leaving Randy without a place to return. Relying on his father's influence, he struggled to find another job and had a hard time. He ended up being hired only for manual labor and was worked hard as an apprentice in construction. Despite his efforts to support Charlotte and their child, his love didn't reach her. Charlotte abandoned Randy and their child. This left Randy in despair, and he hung his head. Randy tried to manage as a single father, but eventually sought help from his parents. Seeing his struggle, his parents took in their grandchild to care for, while Randy became like a shell of his former self. The Randy's family, feeling sorry for Randy and Charlotte's child, supported the grandparents raising their grandchild. Randy completely abandoned parenting and disappeared from his parents' sight. They are currently searching for him, hoping to garnish his wages for child support. For Randy, it was probably a serious love. Charlotte was beautiful and had a mysterious charm that attracted men. She hadn't changed at all since she heartlessly discarded the boy I liked in middle school. "Really, she's a hopeless girl. That's what happens when you don't marry someone you truly love," my mother said sadly. As for me, I sold the house I shared with Randy and started living in an apartment. Occasionally, I now go out with my parents. It was a slow and peaceful time, as if reclaiming the happiness of family togetherness that I had never experienced before. I was finally beginning to heal the wounds from my childhood. After that, I started focusing on my work and was entrusted with a major project. "Do you think I'll be okay as the leader?" "You are responsible, good at your job, and very patient. That's one of your strengths." It was Director Trevor who chose me as the project leader, but I still felt a bit insecure. "Do you really think so?" "It's precisely because of my patience that I feel I may have allowed Charlotte's bad behavior to worsen." Trevor's next words struck a chord with me. "Those who lead must endure. But I believe you have the strength to make decisions when needed without being crushed by patience." "Trevor, thank you." There are people who see my efforts, and I realized that all my past experiences were not in vain. With this in mind, I accepted the role of leader and threw myself into my work even more. Our small company, which Randy had belittled, started to see its performance soar. I don't know how much of that was due to my efforts, but my superiors seemed to recognize my hard work. My salary increased significantly, and I began to live more comfortably than before. Enjoying my newfound single life, I found myself at 33 years old. 3 years had passed since the divorce debacle. That day, I returned to my apartment late at night, exhausted but fulfilled from work, only to be shocked by a figure standing in front of my door. The person was wearing a hood pulled low and had their face wrapped in bandages. Thinking it was a suspicious person, I braced myself. The figure, shrouded in a negative aura like a ghost, looked at me and spoke, revealing their identity. "Tina! Help me! That voice! Charlotte!" The suspicious person was Charlotte. "How do you know where I live? I followed you from your company before." Charlotte admitted to her stalker-like behavior without shame. The skin visible through the bandages was slightly discolored. I was alarmed, not knowing why she looked like that, but Charlotte just kept crying. Not wanting to draw attention from passersby and reluctant to invite her into my home, I took her to the public space inside my apartment building. With tears soaking through the bandages, Charlotte calmed down with the tea I prepared and explained her situation. She had apparently botched a cosmetic surgery. No, it would be more accurate to say she had undergone numerous procedures, developed skin problems, and in her attempts to fix them, altered her bone structure to the point of no return. In short, she had fallen into a pit of her own making. She could no longer even go to work and had quit her job. "Look at this!" She showed me her face, which no longer resembled the beautiful Charlotte I once knew. Her skin was blistered like a burn, and her nose and mouth structure were completely different. I couldn't help but wince at the drastic change. "Why, you didn't need to get surgery!" Charlotte, who had always been praised for her beauty, shook her head with regret. "That wasn't enough. I needed to be even more beautiful. I needed to catch a better man and finally be happy." Her words sent a chill down my spine. After stealing my husband, she still had the audacity to say such things. She abandoned the child she bore, thinking only of herself, and her efforts were completely misguided. Charlotte's gaze turned sharp as she looked at me. "Tina, you seem to be doing well. You must be making good money, right? I still need more surgeries, so lend me some money." "Why should I lend you money? You've taken away my happiness. Not just my husband, but my childhood memories too. I've endured so much because of you, but I'm not the same patient child anymore." I had resolved 3 years ago to punish Randy and Charlotte, and I wasn't going to forgive her just because she came crying now. "You were born beautiful, but you obsessed over me and wished for my unhappiness. That's why you're in this mess. You should face your own heart instead of focusing on your appearance." "Tina." "Charlotte, you felt happy making me miserable. But happiness gained from others' misfortune isn't real happiness. Face yourself properly." What I had wanted to say for so long hit home for her. Charlotte collapsed onto the table, crying. What lay before me was a foolish woman who had misunderstood the shape of happiness for years, but I had no duty or compassion to save her. I simply watched her small, slumped figure silently. After a while, Charlotte, looking completely dejected, slumped her shoulders and began to leave. Her retreating figure had never looked so weak. Charlotte, who had only found happiness in others' misery since childhood, would undoubtedly find it difficult to truly face herself. A year later, my mother, who occasionally checked on Charlotte, told me something surprising. "What? Charlotte got a job?" "Yes, it's temporary work as a building cleaner. I'm relieved she's finally working." My mother, who had grown much grayer over the years, shared this news with me. Charlotte, who once worked glamorously as a secretary, had high pride, so I had braced myself for a longer period of unemployment. I was worried about the burden on my parents, so this news was a relief. Charlotte likely chose the cleaning job because it involved fewer people and allowed her to hide her face with a mask. However, I had my doubts about how long she would stick with it. I decided to watch quietly. Sure enough, less than a month into her new job, Charlotte revealed her true nature. She stole cash from the first safe she encountered as a cleaner. To my shock, Randy, who had been missing, was implicated as her accomplice. They had been secretly in contact all this time. The victimized company was one Randy had connections with, knowing the safe's location and security details. Using their cunning, they executed the crime, but the security system wasn't that easy to fool. They were quickly identified as suspects and arrested. The Randy's family, who had been searching for Randy, were outraged by this heinous act. Already disfavored by the family due to my situation, the two fully turned the family against them, especially Randy's parents, who were raising their grandchild with great effort, declared they would never forgive this betrayal. "We're done with that foolish son. We'll cut all ties from now on. Where did we go wrong?" My mother told me that Randy's parents looked devastated when she met them at the courthouse. Of course, my parents also completely gave up on Charlotte. They told her they wouldn't help her after she served her sentence for theft. Why? Are you abandoning me? We couldn't press charges before because the damage was only within the family, but now the law has finally caught up with you. Charlotte, you're an adult now. Reflect on the crimes you've committed and live independently from now on. Just because we're family doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Tina and we all have our own lives. So you need to take care of yourself. When they visited her, my parents were firm, and Charlotte, finally defeated, could say nothing. Now, my parents live together in a different house, and I have moved to another apartment. Charlotte doesn't know where any of us live. Randy and Charlotte, who selfishly turned to crime, only God knows what will become of them after their release. At 34, I continue to focus on my work as before. The company has grown and even built a new headquarters near the station. I've become a mid-level employee with many subordinates and now serve as Director Trevor's right-hand person. Tina, I want to discuss the upcoming project. Yes. Is the meeting room okay? Trevor whispered in my ear. I found a great restaurant, how about there? Trevor, please keep personal matters out of work. Sorry. Trevor gave a slightly embarrassed smile at my rebuke. Lately, Trevor has been making advances toward me. At first, I was confused, but I've always admired him, so I don't entirely dislike it. However, having sworn off marriage, I couldn't bring myself to say yes. He kindly told me, I'll wait as long as it takes. For now, I lean on his kindness. But if it's not about the project, then it's fine. Huh. A nice restaurant in casual clothes, right? When I said that, Trevor's face lit up. His honest demeanor, like a big dog, is slowly drawing me in. It might take a little more time, but I'll nurture this newfound happiness at my own pace. Finally, I've found my own happiness.